So I've unmuted, and it looks like closed captions working, so the mic is picking us up. It's all yours.
Well, in fact, it is not all mine. As we begin today's meeting, we're going to start immediately with a public hearing related to the zoning ordinance, and as a result, I'll turn that over to our solicitor.
Thank you, Mr. President. So what we have tonight before us, before the get into the regular meeting, is a public hearing on the draft zoning amendment that does a significant amount of updating to the borough's zoning code, particularly with respect to the commercial C1 commercial district, which is primarily the Westinghouse parcel, two parcels that comprise Westinghouse. So prior to getting to this point, Borough Council tasked an ad hoc committee, as well as Jen Easton from Pashick, myself, Alex, and again, an ad hoc committee of council to put together a draft. That draft was brought before this council. Council approved the draft to move forward through the process. The process is set forth in the municipality's planning code, which requires a submission to the Allegheny County Department of Planning for a review and comment period. This was referred to the Borough Planning Commission. There was a meeting last month where the Borough Planning Commission did recommend approval of this draft ordinance as written. And so the essentially the last requirement is this duly advertised public hearing. This will be an opportunity for members of the public to come up, speak for up to 3 minutes, provide any comments, questions you may have about the draft ordinance. After that period is closed, after those comments are closed, we'll close the public hearing, and then later on during the actual meeting, council will have an opportunity to adopt the zoning amendment or not adopt the zoning amendment, and there may be some debates and deliberation amongst council at that time. But the first part is for this council to hear from the public about the draft legislation. Because this is kind of a lengthy update, Mr. President, it's okay if I just kind of run through some bullets, kind of generally describing what we're trying to do?
Absolutely.
All right. So what this ordinance essentially accomplishes is what attempts to accomplish is a number of things. First, it adds definitions for many commercial uses which are not currently defined in the zoning code. And just by way of a little history, if you've been coming to the meetings online or in person over the past few months, we've talked about the fact that the Churchill Borough zoning code really didn't have a need to have a robust set of commercial regulations, because the commercial activity in the borough of Churchill has essentially been limited to the Westinghouse parcel and the associated hot cell, what's called the hot cell parcel, with it, nuclear, whatever work goes on there. So in anticipation of the potential redevelopment of that site, even though there's no applications currently pending before the borough wanted to essentially just update its commercial zoning regulations so that when a developer does eventually come, if that ever occurs, again, over at the Westinghouse site, that the borough is in a position where there's some better guardrails, some protections, some balancing between commercial interests and protecting the residents. And so that's sort of this is an attempt to essentially update the ordinance. There's an anticipation that once a developer does come in and does have some ideas as to what they want to do over there, there'll be further dialogue, and I would expect possibly additional amendments to this ordinance. So this sort of gets us up to a baseline where that does not currently exist in the ordinance. So in addition to the new definitions for commercial uses, which had not been even referenced in the prior zoning ordinance or in the current zoning ordinance, this provides for a procedure and criteria to address uses that are not defined. In other words, it's really hard to always stay on top and anticipate every new use before it really becomes prevalent. So this is there's a catch-all provision that will categorize these uses that are not identified and allow them in certain areas pursuant to certain health and safety criteria, because you just can't spell out criteria for every conceivable use. It's just too hard to stay on top of. So most modern zoning ordinances have a similar catch-all provision. This also reduces the maximum size of the distribution center in the C1 district. The prior Amazon that was approved, and ultimately Amazon abandoned the project, that would have contained close to 3 million square feet of gross floor area. The new maximum under the current regulation, or under the proposed regulations, is 75,000 square feet of gross floor area. So you're really talking, not even in the same ballpark. And the maximum height would be reduced from 125 feet to 40 feet. So you're not talking about a kind of super warehouse in that instance, but it does still maintain the warehouse use, because as folks who have been following the borough for any length of time knows that you have to provide for every lawful use in every community. So you can't just decide we don't like a particular kind of use and just ban it outright. You have to provide for someplace reasonable use of every lawful use in the borough. So that's why you can't just ban something you don't like. And I'm not saying I don't like warehouses, I'm just saying that's just the general rule. This adds provisions to regulate multifamily housing to increase the potential for mixed use development as a possibility over the C1 district. This adds conditional use criteria for not only current uses that are identified in the zoning code, but also some of the newly defined uses that we are adding in here, so that should a developer want to proceed with one of those uses, we have certain criteria, whether it's lot size, setbacks, gross floor area, something to put some regulations on these that don't currently exist. Those regulations don't currently exist. Some yard and area requirements in the C1 district, again, that relates to lot size, setbacks, things like that, and we're modernizing that and updating it. And then the sort of final piece is updating the use table, which is essentially a chart form of all the regulations governing which uses are permitted in which zoning districts and under what, whether it's a permitted use, a use that's allowed as a conditional use, or a use that's permitted as a special exception, or a zoning district where it's not permitted at all. So that chart will be updated as well. I know Ms. Easton, I believe, is promoted to a panelist with us. Jenny, is there anything else that you wanted to add before we open up for public comment?
Good evening, everybody. Thanks, Gavin. No, I thought that was an excellent summary of the amendment as it stands. I'm planning director with Pashak MTR. Our team has had the privilege of working with the borough on the comp plan and C1 visioning, and we're bringing everything we learned along the way to the important task of updating standards for the C1 district. So we understand that it's going to take a bit of work and a bit of time to get those standards just right, calibrating them to enable and incentivize the highest and best possible use of that space. In the meantime, we do recommend advancing this amendment just to reduce the risk of worst case scenario, the borough being unprepared should an application happen to come in for a land use for which you don't have adequate standards right now.
Thanks, Shane. Appreciate that. And so with that said, unless Alex, you have anything else to add before we open up to the public? Okay, so if there's any members of the public who would like to come up, this has been available for a couple of months now online, this draft. If you have any comments, questions you'd like to add, please step up to the microphone, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
So we'll start in the room first, then I'll be promoting people with their hands up online.
Just one at a time, please.
Settle down.
So I think you can turn it over to the online audience.
So I've promoted Kathy Bordner, and in a moment I'll be promoting Sarah Stork. So Kathy, you may go ahead and unmute yourself, please, and speak.
Okay, I think I have myself unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm outside, so you might hear a car go by once in a while. I want to say that I think that this is a very good start, and I'm very appreciative that the council is taking this step. I especially like decreasing the size of warehouses to 75,000 square feet. And I do hope that you pass this. I think you're voting tonight, but I'm not absolutely certain. I do have a couple of questions. I don't see anything about data centers in there. And I know that Mr. Rob said, you really can't come up with, cover absolutely every use. But I do think that that is something that you probably want to put on your radar at some point to address, because those are creating problems all over the country because of the sound that they create. And they also consume an incredible amount of, I think, power and I forget what else. They just, they would not be a good mixed thing to have on the Westinghouse site. And I also hope that you're going to, as you move forward and continue to work on the ordinances, that you'll address improving the sound ordinance. And I also hope that you will allow residents to observe meetings where you are talking about the details of these ordinances. I don't know if you post your committee meetings. I don't know if there was a way that I could have observed the meetings where you were discussing this as you were developing it. And I do think it's a healthy thing for residents to be able to hear that. I noticed at the last meeting, I think it was the workshop meeting, you talked in great detail about a position that you were considering for public safety and code enforcement. And the conversation was very informative for me, so that when you do vote on that, I'll have some background. If you could do that as you move forward on developing these ordinances, somehow publicize a meeting so that if, and what you're going to cover at that meeting. So if a member of the public wants to just sit in and observe and hear the discussion, they can do that. And that is the only public comment that I have tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Warner.
So we did promote Sarah, if you're gonna go ahead and unmute yourself, you may speak. If you'd like to turn your camera on as well, you may.
Sure thing. I would like to object to the inclusion of the extra restrictions on the multiple family dwellings. So according to our code, a multiple family dwelling is anything that is not a one family or two family dwelling. And that includes structures such as like a triplex, which is simply like what most people would consider a house with 3 doors. For a few reasons, the current code restricts the dwellings to only lots with 3 or more acres. The number of lots that we have within Churchill that meet that restriction are fairly small. They are mostly currently occupied by churches, schools, the country club, and obviously C1. There are a lot of benefits to having multiple family dwellings. Creates income opportunities for Churchill residents within the community, brings new members into the community, expands our tax base. And there are also some environmental and cost benefits to using shared infrastructure like water, sewage, and electricity. So by adding these additional requirements to the code that is already fairly restrictive with the 3-acre limit, it is making it near impossible to build these types of structures in any way other than a giant apartment complex. And that is all I got.
Thank you, Sarah. Can we get the spelling of your last name and your address, please?
Sure. As STORCK, 105 Thornberry Drive.
Thank you very much. Alex, anyone else online?
No one else has their hand raised at this point.
All right, last call for in the room. Any comments from council before we close up? All right, I think we can go ahead and adjourn the public hearing. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
One of many things to do. Thank you, Mr. Solicitor, for conducting the public hearing. This will move us into the regular meeting. I would point out that we did have, as was on the agenda, an executive session for the purposes both of contracts, issues, and personnel. Having said that, we can move forward to this and start with a call to order now at 7:16 post meeting, and then a roll call, and then we'll stand.
So we have 2 members who are online this evening. Brooke Chet Williams,
Here.
Valerie Renthaler,
Here.
in the room, Andrea Totillo. Here. Matt Castilian. Present. Deb Cassini Klein. Here. Diane Law. Here. And of course, Jay, you're here.
Still here.
Absent this evening is Mayor Gamrat.
Yes, you picked this evening, so that it forces me to things that I don't do. If you can stand, if you're able, for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have a bit in front of us today. First of all, before I begin, I will point out that our state representative, Abigail Salisbury, is here with us today, so we appreciate her making her rounds to Churchill. She's looking forward to a long, protracted meeting where she will. And I lied to her already because I told her this would be exceptionally quick, and I forgot to fully look at the agenda before I said that. So a couple of mea culpas already, and we're just getting started, but we are absolutely thrilled to have you here. We're going to move to a couple of things. First of all, as we all know, today is September 11th. We'll take a moment of silence, but before we do that, I just want to point out to everyone the significance of not only kind of us, and I look in this room and I think everybody here remember September 11th, right? But there are a lot of folks who let this kind of slip off their radar, young kids who don't know it yet. As a veteran of the Marine Corps, it's something that I know a lot of people after me joined into the service, quite frankly, to address the issues. So I would just say that in the space of the many never forgets that we have, this remains one that's very important to me, and I think to us as a community, to the state of Pennsylvania, knowing our own space of the tragedy. And so with that, I would ask if we could take a moment of silence to remember those lost on September 11th. I appreciate it. Okay, thank you for that. And to those who served in the past, served in the future, and gave their life during that time. Having gone through that, there is a special recognition. This is why I'm mad at Paul and our mayor today, right? Because as it turns out, in the world of kind of acknowledging folks, I'm really terrible at it, and he's really great at it, right? He goes around from house to house, and I just have people that I argue with. So having said that, there is a certificate. It's not really a proclamation per se in this sense, but I want to read it out, and I also want to take a moment before I do to tell you guys just how impressed I am, right? And everybody, quite frankly, that I've talked to, and my neighbors, and my kid. My kid has a lot of comments, right? A lot of great things. She's got some suggestions, because that's her. But no, it was fantastic, right? Like, there's a reason why I take the moment to read this, but also to take the moment to say to you all, like, it was amazing, and you guys do a phenomenal job. Right? It really brings us together as a community. It's more than just an event. It really is an opportunity for us as a community to come together, and to that, we owe you a debt of gratitude. And so I want to take that moment to say that.
We are talking about community debt. Yes.
Of course we are.
I know, it's like we're having somebody out there, we're like, what?
And specifically the rec board.
Thank you both. And let me be clear again. This is why the mayor does these things, right? What I do is people say, I don't like that. And I go, wait a second, right? I don't do this
Just
part.
want to make sure everybody knew. Right.
I should, you know what? I should have had you read it.
No,
I really should have had you read it.
Maybe they even interrupt you.
Having said that, so there is a certificate. I want to read through it just so it's acknowledged publicly, and then we can kind of move forward. And so this is from both the council and the mayor. And this certificate is presented to the rec board of Churchill Borough, who carried out the borough's mission to promote community involvement, interaction, awareness, and unity within the borough through planned activities for all ages. The board of active volunteers shares the conviction that Churchill is one of the best places in Pittsburgh to call home. Here. The recreation board, I read it full, works with the borough council, as well as other organizations within and outside the borough, to help foster a place where fresh ideas and creativeness can bloom. Churchill Borough Council and the mayor recognize and congratulate the recreational board on having a successful community day in which residents and surrounding community residents gathered at the grounds of the Pace School to celebrate and enjoy good in music, good times of music, let's go with that. Thank you for your continued hard work and support, and we look forward to future community days. Having said that, when you do something outstanding as you do, right? That's when you come to us and say, I got bigger ideas, right? We're here for it. That's all I'm gonna tell you.
I
We're
think he's
here for it.
saying, now's the time to submit the budget request.
I'm trying not to say that as directly. The other council, you and I get up to the point of people, you know.
There we go.
But yes, yes.
And we do have cake, so if we could take just a minute, I don't want them to think they have to wait for the cake, right? Can we do
Right.
that?
Well, whatever they want, if you want to get cake now and leave, you don't want to stay for the whole thing or whatever.
So-
You don't have-
Here, I'm just gonna say this as in the space of government, it is never good to say let them eat cake. Having said that though, yeah, if we want to roll some cake, man.
I don't want anyone to feel obligated to stay. We don't have a terribly big agenda after this point.
Nope,
So if you want to stay,
We'll stay.
awesome.
Okay.
I promise the cake is good. We're working on it. But it's funny when you read something out loud where you hear
Right,
why you should have read it out loud before you hit print.
right.
So you know what? It makes my life easier when there's a typo of any type, because then you guys just don't think I'm the fool the way that I normally do anyway. There could have not been a typo, it still would sound just like that. So, okay,
If you all want to stand up.
Can you say
so-
something?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Please stand up.
I'll just say on behalf of the board itself, this is a great group of people. Probably more than I even realized, because they all help each other. But I do want to say that we really pulled a lot together in a short period of time, because we had so many unanswered questions. And everybody on this board, new, old, came in, old members, I mean, but really came together for the benefit of the community, and it wasn't just all about us. We really worked hard to think, what pockets are we hitting? And also, I'd like to say a special thank you to Alex, who every single time we reached out and asked him, can we do this? Can we have this? Uh-oh, this happened. This man never flinched, never said, what? You know, he just said, I got it, take care of it, send it to me. I'll take care of it. Send me a copy. I'll have this. Thank you. A true professional when it comes to helping us navigate through some things that we just didn't know. You know, and we're learning as we go. We have a great mentor who really kind of, on many texts, on many occasions, on many emails and phone calls, he guided me with, yeah, you know, so it was great to have him on our side. So we like to thank you.
alright. Well, that was wonderful, and we're gonna roll into public comment at this time. Yep. Public comment is,
Want to go for?
just, no, you don't have to go there, just give me 1 second to say, we'll start over here on the left.
I'm sorry. You start over there.
Please, come on, you know how many times I'm waiting for you to actually have comment?
Seal Griever, 1520 Williamsburg Place. Love these people. Absolutely love. Churchill Days was fabulous. It was just the best. I met so many nice people, new people. It was just great. It was great for Black Ridge. Yeah, just everything about it was awesome. And thank you also, Alex and the board. It was just great. I cannot wait till next year. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Marty. Thank you so much.
Sounds like we need more people on the rec board. We should strike while the iron's hot.
Also. This is generally, rule number 1, right? So both on the funding and on the personnel. Any other public comment in the room? On anything? Okay.
Hi, my name is Abigail Salisbury, I'm your state rep. Hi. I just wanted to invite people. We're having 2 events that are coming up. We have to get one scheduled yet, but it is the expungement clinic. So if anyone knows someone who has a past conviction on their record that is hindering them in some way with maybe driver's licensing or background checks for jobs, something along those lines, they'll be able to work out of our office with the Allegheny County Bar Foundation to get that waived or get that managed. So we'll be having an expungement clinic coming up. Other thing is on October 12th from 10 to 4 at the Bricklayers Union, we're having a nonprofit symposium. That's part of the state nonprofit caucus and the Democratic House chair of. So we'll be having legislators come from all over the state to Wilkins. And we will have nonprofit attorneys who are not me. We'll be having grant writers, we'll be having people from the appropriations staff at the state. And so if anyone would like to come and tell legislators what nonprofits might need, if you sit on a board, if you have friends who sit on a board or if you're associated with any kind of a nonprofit organization, feel free to come to that. You can communicate to the state what you need, and then also hopefully learn something while you're there. Thanks.
I will just point out, as somebody who's run a nonprofit for 20 years and sits on the board of 2, that is fabulous. Thank you. Right, super appreciated. And on the expungement space, is somebody who works in the field of assisting people with criminal histories based on addiction. Again, great work. So thank you. So on that note, anything else on public?
No one has their hand raised online at this point.
Just a reminder, folks, if you are online and you would like to make public comment, if you click the raise your hand, I always give people a couple extra seconds because sometimes it's hard to find. We can move forward and we'll promote you and then let you make your comments for taxpayers and residents. I do see we have a call-in user who we always kind of move forward. If you want to unmute yourself, if you do have something to say, we will afford you the floor. And if not, we will close public comment and move into our ordinary items. So I'll give you a quick second here. Not seeing anything, and you don't see anybody whose hand is raised beyond that, then we're going to close public comment and move into ordinary items, to which I did not really sign these, so we're just kind of swinging it today. So my apologies to the folks at the table. But we
Mr. President,
have some notes, yes.
I move to accept the meeting minutes from Monday, August 2nd, 2023, the Borough Council Workshop Meeting, and from the Monday, August 14, 2023, regular council meeting.
Second. Thank you, thank you. Any discussion on the matter? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries without opposition. Moving forward. We have nobody to read out.
But it is in your binder.
Yeah, no, so normally we go to the readout, so we have nobody to read out, so.
So, Mr. President, motion to accept mayor's report from August 2023.
Thank you. Second. Thank you. Any discussion on the matter? Any questions for the chief since we have new? Hearing none. Looking online, just making sure. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the mayor's report is accepted without opposition. Moving forward to Treasury and Finance.
Mr. President, I motion to accept the treasurer's report for August 31st, 2023, and motion to direct the finance officer to pay the bills for the Borough of Churchill accrued since August 14th, 2023.
Second. Thank you, and thank you. Thanks, Bell, for being a trooper no matter how. I appreciate that you're here with us. Any discussion on the matter? I'm gonna throw Valerie a bone on this because not at the top of the game, and I say that anytime that we have bills that are the amount larger than $15,000, that we read them publicly just to make sure that they are highlighted for folks and they know what's going on. This week we have 6. I went from year to week, but this month we have 6. Beginning with A. Liberoni Incorporated on the final paving program, and that's a payment in the amount of $42,845.32. Alcosan, which is our standard municipal agreement, in the amount of $41,789.26. State Pipe Services, Inc., that's payment number 3 on the CCTV, closed cam, not cable, in the amount of $41,270.32. Gateway for our wonderful engineers and their August invoice in the amount of $22,326.57. Big Valley Landscape Construction, again, for the August invoice on our crew there, in the amount of $20,150.44. And then we do have the State Workers Insurance Fund, BFC, which is the workers' comp, the amount of $10,934. Is there any other discussion on the matter? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? and the treasury report and the finance director to pay the bills is accepted without opposition. This moves us on to the zoning.
Mr. President, I move to adopt an ordinance 771 of the Borough of Churchill, County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending the Churchill Borough zoning ordinance, chapter 304 of the Borough Code, to revise certain definitions and add new definitions, to amend 304 attachment 1, table 201, permitted uses, conditional uses, yard and area requirements, and to amend regulations related to distribution centers.
Second?
Thank you. Is there any discussion? I think we've heard, just so folks know, it is exactly what we had the public hearing on a little bit earlier, and it was described by the solicitor. It's a mouthful for a motion, but I think it's, you know, we're moving in the right direction, and there'll be more work to come with that, I'm sure. Any other discussion on the matter?
Has there been any conversation with the current owner about potential buyers who are interested in developing the property?
So whether or not that's the case, it does not fall within the motion here. I can discuss that after the fact, but I don't want to discuss it in the concept of the motion for the ordinance. So that's something that we can certainly return to. I think it's a great question, but not germane to the motion on the floor. So we will definitely return to that. Any other discussion?
So real quick, I just want to add, the motion on the floor is to discuss the change in zoning and the definitions. And so I think that the question that I asked is relevant to that. If you would like to have a conversation afterwards, we can do that, but the question is relevant.
And to be clear, we will have the conversation publicly. When I say afterwards, I don't mean outside of here. But the motion itself is particular to the ordinance, not to potential buyers, not to development. So you're speaking kind of outside the framework of the motion, but I do appreciate your comment. We will go back and make sure that it's discussed properly. So we will get your question answered, but in the terms of what we're doing, it stays in the context of what's actually on the table. Having said that, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries without opposition. Moving on to number 8, the collective bargaining.
Mr. President, motion to adopt, excuse me, resolution 4575 of the Borough of Churchill, County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, authorizing the 2-year collective bargaining agreement with the Churchill Borough Police Association, retroactive to January 1st, 2023. This is a 2-year agreement, including reducing the number of steps to reach patrol officer base pay, excuse me, from 10 to 7, a 3% raise for 2023, and a 4% for 2024.
Second?
Thank you. Any discussion? I will say again that this was a long and arduous process, and honestly, I hope one that we never have to do again for a number of different reasons. Having said that, you know, I've been through 4 different collective bargaining agreements, and I'm hoping if we do have to do this one again under the guise of Churchill, I will not be on that committee. So I will say that with absolute certainty. Having said that, is there any other discussion on the matter?
So I would just say, you know, appreciate the Management and Government Committee. That's where that fell under, to work with the police union and come up with the initial draft and work everything through. So we appreciate their hard work in that. And as Jay said, it's a little bit of a process, so appreciate them sticking it out.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries without opposition. Moving us on to number 9.
Mr. President, I motion to adopt resolution 4576 of the Borough of Churchill, County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, establishing the minimum municipal obligation, MMO, for pension funds pursuant to Pennsylvania Act 205 of 1984, Municipal Pension Plan Funding Standard and Recovery Act as amended for the year 2024. Municipal Employees Pension Plan, $33,303. Police Pension Plan, $153,823.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the matter? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? And the motion carries without opposition. That moves us on to discussion items. I will start with our folks. In fact, you know, I'm gonna stop that. I'm gonna start with Ms. Williams' question. Brooke had a question regarding development, right? And so a couple things I would just point out. As we are not the owners of the property, we are not in charge of development. There's currently a couple people kind of sniffing around. I don't know that it's appropriate to be like, hey, somebody met, and said, we're interested, to go kind of put them on, put that out there. Outside of the fact that there is, some interest in development, what the development really kind of looks like at this time, that they're talking about are kind of that kind of mixed use retail kind of space, something that was more appropriate, I think, to what we were looking at before the magical kind of crazy Amazon circus. And so, there's no change of ownership, there's no change of hands as it stands right now. The same owner still owns the property. We are more than willing and stand ready to work with them in any way we can to assist in finding a way to develop that in a way that is consistent with really what we want here in Churchill. There's been conversation going back to our planning spaces and other space in other kind of internal and external about, is mixed use a kind of good use for it? That's generally been where people have settled at. Part of that has been, talking with, any potential owner about a park and making sure that that park space is available. That continues to be an ongoing conversations with anyone who would be a new owner. The current owner is aware of that is something that's very important to us. And so that's being communicated, quite frankly, from our current owner to anyone who's looking at the space to say, here's something that would really kind of be good for Churchill, right? To have a play space, to have some fields, to have some other things. So we are continuing to look for community benefit opportunities. But until there is really a change of hands, it's very difficult to have kind of conversations about this is what's going to happen, right? The hope, I think is that they're able to have a change of hands, that we can get somebody who is interested in this. As that moves forward, we certainly would reach out both to our state rep, along with, quite frankly, our county and federal to help, ensure that we're able to provide quality development to that property. It is one of the biggest properties out in the east. It's something that I think has long been, I want to say neglected. I want to say long been overlooked by the development process that takes place both within the county, within the state. And so we hope that we could get more eyes onto that. Development is competitive, right? It's not like it's the only parcel in Western Pennsylvania. And so you think strategically about how you move these things forward. But as it stands right now, there's been nothing new outside of kind of prior conversation of potential development, that there's a potential buyer, they're looking at it. They have a mixed use retail thought to it. They're trying to see if they can do some kind of big box, some restaurant. It's very similar to where we were, like I said, kind of pre-Amazon, right? And I think that's a good outcome, just personally, and from what we've heard from citizens going back to the planning stages with passion, that stays consistent with that. So nothing like pressing new, that says like, hey, there's a sale that's happening, we've got it down, it's happening. We're right where we are again in the space of people do their due diligence, we wait and see, and that's kind of where we set from everything that I've heard, unless you have new information beyond that.
I'm not in communication with the current owners, and I'm not sure who on council has been. And so that's why I was asking the question for clarification. Who on council is communicating with the current owner about any potential development or interest that is expressed in that particular property? My follow-up question is also related to ensuring that we have an ongoing plan for how we are going to address any environmental issues on that particular parcel, to ensure that we're not losing any more value. I know that there was in the past, the owner had the property reassessed. And so the taxation on that property decreased. And so I want to ensure that there's a plan moving forward, even if there's no developer at the table, on how we're going to ensure that the property does not lose any more value.
And I think to help answer that, one of the big property decrease came at the sale, right? And it turns out if you sell a place for $1 million, it's worth $1 million, as it turns out. So it wasn't really necessarily that there was some, thing that we can step in and address in that way. I'm sure you understand, in the place of kind of assessment, right? One of the greatest ways to get an assessment is what did you buy it for, right? And so quite frankly, in terms of the plan on our end, right? We're looking at this going, how do we promote it so it has to, so people want to buy it, that if people say Churchill's a great place, that we have a fantastic rec board that makes people want to come here and live here, right? Like that's what we do as Churchill. Again, I think there's a confusion that takes place too often in understanding who owns the property, right? And therefore who does what with it, So I respect your point. I think I understand your point with regard to property devaluation, that the primary space in that bill was the actual sale that took place. And then quite frankly, there was a bunch of stuff that happened after that that was outside of our purview as well. But the best thing that and if you have a different idea, I'm more than open to hear it. But the best thing I think that we can do in terms of increasing property value, right, for that property and every property in Churchill, right, is to highlight the value of Churchill, to highlight our community, to show that we're a place that's worth doing business, that's worth moving to. And I think that's our best option. Alex, I'm sorry, you're looking over, do you have a comment or we're good?
No, I'm good.
Excellent.
Jay, I have a
Yes,
question
please.
on that. I mean, and that's if it changes hands, certainly, but if, for example, the current owner were to do their own project or a large renovation on the site, then we'd have an opportunity to look at what it's actually worth or what kind of investment was
If
put
they
into
do
the site,
something,
correct?
yeah, in fact, great point. So,
Because they haven't to
Right.
this time.
That's right. In fact, there was a conversation and opportunity that the previous owner, and this is, we're gonna get a little in the weeds, but it's okay, because it's worth it for everyone to understand it. Not the current owner, but the previous owner, they do movies over there, right? So one of the things was, hey, we need to improve the movie studio, they were saying, right? We need to raise the roof, we need to install lighting, we need to do a bunch. When they do those things, right? Now we're talking about a different structure, we have an opportunity to reassess, to say, hey, wait a second, it's not what it was before, and really look at the value again. They didn't do that. But have they done that? So yes, if the current owner were to do that, my general, observation, is that, the main goal right now, I think, is and I'm saying this completely off for me, right? But having watched this property for, last, 12, 13 years, 14 years now, the main goal of our current ownership, I think, is to find a good developer and to sell it, right? Maybe not, right? But that's just my observation. So that's what I would leave that at. So, I'm going to move to our discussion item, starting with our engineer, move our way around here and get some cake.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our report was provided. The only item that I'd like to point out is that the road program is officially closed out. Final pay application provided to the contractor following all punches item.
Thank you. Anything to add on that, Mr. Structure? Sorry.
No, I mean, we certainly appreciate the fact that A-Lib Roney got out and got on top of that. I know last year our paving contract, pushed, I think it was into September when we were really getting started. That's never ideal with the buses and everything else. So, it's great to have the contractor get out and, Gateway did an excellent job managing them and pushing them to make sure that got done, so.
Fabulous. All right, I'm gonna move over to, our fire chief as well as public works. Ralph, anything, on the table for us to know here?
The only thing I have tonight, Mr. President, is that the fire department responded to significant calls. One was at Homer and Bulow. We had a T-bone accident there. We had a lady trapped in the car. We were able to get her out in less than 30 minutes. And then we had another one on Churchill Road. That was on the Wilkins side. A gentleman flipped his van approximately 4 times, and he was ejected from the vehicle. So it was a pretty bad accident there. The fire department has responded to 42 calls last month. We're at 344 calls for the year. On the road department side, the guys will be out at the end of the month doing some crack sealing, so you'll see them around in the borough doing crack sealing. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate all that you all do. I know it's a difficult road as both the calls keep going up. The work is a tough one. So
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely, you can.
You said 344 calls this year. How does that compare to last year or a few years prior to that?
seems high.
I'd have to look that up. I'm not quite sure what that relation is to last year or the year before. I can look that up and give it to you.
Okay.
Sorry, I just don't have it. I don't have that information in front of me right now.
Good. So Ralph, if I recall, last year we ended at about 600, is that right?
No, we ended up at 500 calls last year.
Okay, so we're
Right around 500.
on pace from
Yeah, we're
last
on
year.
pace for another 500 year. Yeah, yeah.
Which is still a very busy year, and I would just point out to residents, you know, not that that it needs to be said, but I think it does that our volunteer fire company, right, is out there doing a wonderful job to help us. And if you have the capacity to be part of it and to volunteer your time with them, there's a need. And it's a need that is regional. And so we're not alone in this, but we really could use people. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, sorry, I see you unmuted, so.
Oh, yes, we could always use members. Anytime anybody can come out and help, that'd be great. Thank you.
So, thank you. I'm gonna move forward to our police chief. If there's any comment from the chief.
No, sir, I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and please thank you for all the work that you do and our forces. I still think we are lucky to have the people that we have and in the way that we do. I comment all the time that we still live in a community, again, where our relationship and our police are great, and we you know, it just feels nice. So having said that, I will move forward on to our solicitor, if you will.
President, I know better than to stand between a rec board and its cake.
You and your team, man.
Just real quickly, my understanding is that the T-bone accident referenced by Ralph, Chief Ackerley happened to be working that day. And just to give you an idea of the interagency cooperation, it's seamless. Ron, the chief, was very involved in helping to extricate the person who was trapped. And from people who were on scene and watched it, it was remarkable to see how flawless they all worked together to get that person relief and get them into a safe space. The other thing I would like to add is, I know Michelle's is online, but don't want you to forget, council, you've been sent meeting schedules where we welcome you to come in and sit down with us to go through the budget. We've allotted, I think, about 12 hours of time where you can come and do that. Encourage you to do that one-on-one so you can get all your questions answered without worry or concerns or anything like that. And we can spend as much time as you need to feel comfortable about the budget.
Yeah, I would take an extra step and say that we all really should do this.
Oh, yeah, right.
If you're not doing this, I think it may require, you know, a bit of an explanation as to why. I think every one of us has a fiduciary duty to our residents, right? And it's very difficult for me to believe that we are meeting that duty if we have not sat down and reviewed the budget. So I would put that to everybody, just to be clear about it, that you should come and meet with the staff on this, have your questions prepared, whatever they may be, or if you don't have any, you know, and then we will move from there. You can just grab it. Okay, there, right now. Is there other comments for you? Because we're gonna go back to a point that, right, you're between Kate.
Yeah, Turtle Creek Valley Council of Governments, the COG, will be having a meeting on October 18th at 6 p.m. That's gonna start, and that is specific about fire needs that they're gonna be discussing with our other local governments. You know, how we can support building up our volunteer fire companies, you know, what the future might hold, et cetera. So, you know, certainly for the fellow council folks, you know, make sure you mark your calendar, please, and plan to attend. If you need details, let me know.
Sounds wonderful. Any other comments from council? Give me the extra second for this suspense. All right, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn then.
So move.
Second.
Game, set, match, people. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Eat cake.